Good morning. It's 8:30, Tuesday, May 7th, and I'm calling the May 7th meeting of the Clay County Board of Commissioners to order. First item on our agenda is approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, moving on to employee recognitions. Have two of our employees that were recognized for service this morning. First is Esther Baquero. I'm sorry. Come on up, Esther. Sorry about blundering the name there. 30 years.
Yes, sir.
Oh.
Good morning. As you can imagine, Esther has seen many changes throughout the past 30 years. Staff changes, process and procedure changes, computer updates and changes. She takes it all in her confident and efficient stride. She has gained a wealth of knowledge over this time, and she uses her knowledge to guide and mentor staff. She answers client questions as they call. She is pivotal in ensuring the division's success. She provides support to 17 staff in what is actually 3 different divisions of child support, fraud, and collections. She works with multiple complicated computer systems, and she manages her tasks timely while still finds time to offer guidance to her team. Her organization is impeccable. Everything throughout her suite is labeled and in its place. If anyone is looking for anything, she has it and knows where it is. She is very appreciated by her team. 30 years reflects her dedication to Clay County, and her leave of accruals reflect her dependability. I am grateful she finds importance and satisfaction in being a member of the support staff team and has chosen to remain in this position for years. She is a mentor and an inspiration to all on the OSS team. Thank you for 30 years,
Technical hang up here. Jennifer Conklin. 15 years.
Thank you.
Keeping your boss, Kurt Cannon, in line.
It's a tough job.
That's the main thing.
Is that on?
Yeah, I don't need it. There you go. What?
To get out on the airwaves.
First and foremost, we'll get the elephant out of the room. Thanks for not being a vet. Otherwise, I would not be here. And speaking for you. I want to thank Mike, her husband, for showing up this morning. I was taught in the military, you're only as good as your staff. And believe me, Jennifer makes me look good and our office. She's helped over thousands of vets with benefits, widows benefits, compensation, VA healthcare, brought in the county over millions of dollars in benefits, not only Clay County, but all over the United States that she helps veterans get her commitment, dedication, and foremost her expertise helping vets. She belongs to state organizations state associations that she's involved in to help vets. So being a non-veteran, her commitment and to these vets in Clay County is unmatched. So I tell her, I told Joe we're gonna have to widen the door because her head's gonna take this. But we've laughed, we've cried, we've argued, we've done almost everything, but at the end of the day, problem solving to get the vet the benefits. So we got 9 years together and 4 more.
You don't have to go that long.
She said that's too long, but I am grateful every day, and I tell her that to be my colleague. She's not my assistant. She's definitely not my secretary, but we're colleagues. So, and I tell the whole state that. She's very, very well recognized within the state, and people do come to her for help outside of our office. So Clay County is very fortunate to have Jennifer on staff. So thanks for your 15 years.
Next, we have citizens to be heard. Are there any citizens here who wish to address the commission on a subject that's not on the agenda? Anyone remotely, Steve?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Next, approval of payment of bills and vouchers.
Move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next, we have approval of minutes from April 16th and April 23rd, 2024.
Mr. Chair, I'll offer a motion to approve the minutes as presented in the packet.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, next on the agenda, we have,
Mr. Chair, sorry, there's a donation tracking. Are you going to?
yes. We want to extend our gratitude to Metro Sports Foundation for their generous donation to the Sheriff's Office. The funds are being used to purchase a forward-looking infrared thermal imaging device. They're indispensable, basically, for law enforcement and public safety now. People we have to go in the river, suspects we have to run into the cornfields, things like that. You can spot the image of them just by their heat trace and know just right where to go to do what you've got to do. So we're very grateful for that gift. And now, next on the agenda, we have Greg Stroman, Clay County Trailblazers Snowmobile Club. Request for approval of Resolution 2024-17 for Clay County to act as legal sponsor for DNR funding for snowmobile trail management by Clay Trails Alliance. Good morning.
Good morning. I usually do an annual report first. This year, there's not much to report. Actually, there was not the last big storm, the previous snowfall before that. We did have some ditches up north where we could have groomed, but they were half full of water because everything was full of water, so we couldn't groom. So we could have groomed this year. Also, prior to that, in 2022, 2021 timeframe, you guys were a sponsor for a recreational trails program grant that we received. And I think we've got pictures of that. Okay, it's in your packet, good. And so that's the equipment that we received under that grant. We got a $75,000 grant for that. So we were able to upgrade equipment that way. And funding for that comes from, you know, when we fuel up our snowmobiles, we're paying state tax or federal taxes on that, gas tax. So that's all part of that reimbursement. That's where those funds come from, I guess. So just want to update you guys on that, and thank you for helping us out with that too. That was a $237,000 piece of equipment, so just the power unit. And it had 1 year of extended warranty this last year, but we didn't get to use it. So, anyway, also, this last one, or one thing we did do, Region 9, the United Snowmobilers Association, which we're Region 9, there's 9 regions in the state. And we hosted the state ride this year, which is called the Governor's Ride, out of Otter Tail, Thumper Pond. Of course, with no snow, we had to come up with other events. We did a Lund factory boat tour, which is really interesting. It was a lot of fun. Saturday night, we had over 200 people show up, which for a brownout year, that's really good attendance. So we did really well with that. We are also hosting the summer picnic for Minn USA in Battle Lake this summer, July 13th. So those are some of the activities we're doing. And we request that you guys would be our sponsor again so we can continue to maintain snowmobile trails in Clay County for next year.
Mr. Chair, I'd move resolution 2024-17.
I'll second the motion.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes. Thank you for coming in, Greg, and I hope next year we get some snow.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I did have a comment. That's fine. I can do it afterwards. I just want to thank you and your crew for the work that you do. It really is nice to add this element of recreation to Clay County. I know sometimes that gets overlooked, but it really is quite a fantastic network of trails. It is heartbreaking when we don't get the snow needed, but when we do get those crazy storms that blow all the snow into the ditch, it is helpful, and grateful that you have those trails all over, really geographically north and south, for folks to get on. So thanks for the work.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Thanks again for coming in.
Yes, thank you.
Next on the agenda, request approval for HIPAA security posture assessment for social services. Good morning.
Good morning. Mr. Chair, today, Rhonda Porter and I will be requesting approval for a HIPAA security posture assessment and risk analysis for the county itself, where our hopes are this assessment will cover not only the requirement for HIPAA, which I'll let Rhonda dig into or dive into a little deeper, but also set that baseline for other departments based on the results of this.
Okay. Yes, this is something we've been looking at over the last few months. As you may recall, I have been working with some organizations regarding our HIPAA policy and brought that before the board a few weeks ago for approval. It's about 148 pages HIPAA policy for our department that includes all of our required forms, and that policy, we're in fact starting some training for all of our staff, all of our 145 staff starting this afternoon. We'll have 2 opportunities for that. And this is an additional step in that process. The federal law does require these, a HIPAA risk analysis is how it's phrased in the law, and it also requires a risk management process. So in order to comply with those pieces, this is something Rory and I are recommending that we complete. And then going forward, I think that we can learn from this pretty in-depth process, and some of these pieces we can do ourselves going forward. But to assure that we're in compliance and for reporting to the Office of Civil Rights, we feel that this is the next step that we need to take in our process for protecting HIPAA, as well as other protected identifiable information for the folks that we serve.
Any questions for Rory or Rhonda? I'll entertain a motion if we don't have any questions.
And Mr. Chair, maybe if I have a comment here. So the amount is $27,450. Because of the very customizable take on this assessment. We did not get a second quote on this based on that above the $25,000, so I just wanted to mention that as well.
Okay, thank you.
If I get, how do they arrive at that number 27?
Based on their, I guess, what would you say, Rhonda, their previous assessments for other customers?
I'm assuming there's an estimated amount of time that they have to do it. Is that?
Yeah, actually, it'll be over the course of 16 to 20 weeks, this will take place. So it's a long assessment.
And the results are something they're used to providing to the federal government to meet. They know what they're doing, in other words. They'll,
Yeah, absolutely. The information we have from this particular provider is they've done these assessments in the past for other counties as well as other Minnesota counties. So we certainly trust their process. They know what they're doing in terms of making sure that we're in compliance with all of the data privacy and as well as HIPAA rules. And this is a bit unique because they're looking at our electronic process. You know, there's a paper process, there's a paper flow of stuff, but it's looking at all of our electronic processes as well in terms of how we manage protected information.
very good.
Can I just ask one follow-up?
Sure.
So at what point should HR be involved with this?
Well, that's a good question.
I mean, don't they get involved in some degree in some HIPAA issues or?
Yeah, there's certainly, well, I mean, the HIPAA piece is generally medical, but there could be some items within the files that Darren may want to have looked at as protected.
Yeah.
Well, I
and
guess I would
if might
just,
follow up-
suggest that maybe coordinate with Darren in the event that there's portions of that.
Right. Because this is specifically not necessarily so much employees' data, but the clients that we're serving data, correct? I mean, that's what it's scanning.
Correct. That, to my understanding, that is the focus. However, once we kind of launch this process with them, we'll get some more details of step by step what they're intending to do.
Okay.
And so we'll make sure we raise that question, whether that is something we need to pull in HR and how they may be involved in the process.
I guess it's something that we're doing on behalf of our employees to know what they need to be able to put out and not put out in terms of information,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, it's definitely looking at how our employees handle protected health information, as well as how we interact with our clients relative to protected health information. Yep.
I get, so, and again, the reason I bring that up is maybe somewhere within our process system, maybe through our employee manual policies and so on and so forth, there maybe needs to be mention about how the employees interact with HIPAA rules and regulations. I don't know if it's there or not, but that's just to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is absolutely the development of our Clay County Social Services HIPAA policy. That is exactly what our staff will be trained on in the next coming weeks. However, this, again, that is the HIPAA policy in terms of statutorily what we're required to do. This is going to really take a deeper dive into our workflow, our e-systems, how we store data, how we communicate with our applicants, and how we're managing overall those pieces.
Thank you.
Yes, Frank?
Now, one more question. What does HIPAA stand for? What does it mean?
Health Insurance Portability and Protection Act. Let's see if I got that right. Health information, portability.
In other words, just use HIPAA.
Yeah, it's HIPAA, yep.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve this.
A second.
Have motion a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up is approval for out-of-state travel for Sheena Acer. We have, who's presenting it, Steve?
Mr. Chair, I think that was on
was
the,
part of the
that
approval.
was part of the consent.
Oh, okay. Somehow it got mixed up in my pack here.
You can do Lori next, though, I think.
Yep. We're going to have a public hearing, 9 a.m. We're 10 minutes up. So we'll go to Lori. Request to approve master agreement, ratification of master agreement for tax software. Lori, good morning.
We are due for an update for our tax system. We purchased our current tax system. We're due for an update of our tax system. We purchased our current tax system in 2009. And right now, we're working through MCCC for a contract, and so we're just ratifying that contract. They've already negotiated something. And the total cost for the product will be $465,360. And that's over a 3-year period. We'll be implementing it in 2025. And we do have $496,365 available in the internal service fund, so.
Very good. Any questions for Ms. Johnson?
Move approval.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Melton has an item later on the agenda that he could do
Okay,
if the board wishes. Number 22 on the agenda.
Okay. Mr. Melton?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, I am coming here to request to fill a vacancy that just came forward. It's unfortunate. Excellent young attorney that's leaving, going to another county over. So I know our market study is very timely at this point, but I am requesting to fill that open position in the civil team, county attorney's office.
Any questions for Ms. Melton?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Passes.
Thank you much.
We're still 7 minutes. We're moving right along.
Mr. Chair, I have the next
Yeah.
two items at 23 and 24, if we wanted to take a look at those now.
Okay.
So we're doing PRTF piece.
PRTF, Mr. Chair, PRTF, Commissioner Mojo, PRTF would be the first item. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for your flexibility. Before you, for your consideration this morning, would be a request to enter into pre-design architectural services for a psychiatric residential facility. As this board is certainly well aware, this year they identified one of its legislative priorities was to look for funding for that facility. As we've moved through the legislative sessions, we've had some adjustments as far as the ability with the change in the outlook of what we would potentially be able to get this year. And so we've kind of put a pause on moving forward with the legislative piece this year. Having said that, it allows us to, I think, we've done a number of projects over the last few years. And because of how quickly this idea was brought forward, we have a better opportunity now to do some planning. And so part of that plan as we move forward, looking to get on the bonding tour this summer, early fall, we would be looking to create a pre-design. And so I did reach out to Klein McCarthy Architects, who we've had a close working relationship over the last few years, and requested a pre-design estimate or contract. Before you this morning, it would be a contract that would consider a pre-design and also would also include all of the B3 provisions that would come with state bonding dollar requirements. And so the request before you this morning would be a contract of not to exceed $107,550 plus a lump sum fee of $2,000 in reimbursables. And we would fund that through county reserves with the understanding that once we receive funding, we would be able to potentially provide that back to the general fund. Again, it's a little bit of a different contract, not to exceed. In working with Scott, we looked at, Scott Bettig, we looked at a situation which rather than have a set amount as they work through the B3 agreements, there may be additional dollars that we can save there. And so you also have received a handout today with the hourly rates that dictates what those rates would be for the people that worked on our project. And with that, I'd yield for any questions.
Commissioner Campbell.
Mr. Chair, I think this was brought before our building committee, and the original proposal that they submitted had two different costs. One was a cost with and one was a cost without the B3 components. Because of the likelihood that the only way this will be built is with the assistance of the state, we know that the B3 component will be required. And so we felt that it was important and necessary to include that information within the design component so we can actually also have a better understanding of what the true cost will be as we move forward with the legislature. So, you know, because as we've learned, the B3 costs can be substantial. I think in one of our facilities, I think it added like a third of the cost to the project. You know, so it's important, and I guess that's important for the board to know that we're looking for that, and then that also will make a difference in what we share with the legislature in terms of the total cost. So. But I would admit that during our building committee meeting, the numbers were smaller than this. But it doesn't change the idea of why it's important to do it, so.
Commissioner Krabanoff? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Mr. Mojo.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to thank the building committee for having the discussion in regards to this. I think it's really important to have this information in regards to what the pre-design information will provide us with, and certainly we've worked with Klein McCarthy on a number of projects, and there really is a cost savings to that because there is an understanding what the county's preferences are in regards to building these types of facilities. I've spent a substantial, almost embarrassing amount of time watching Capital Investment Committee hearings, not only in the House of Representatives, but also the Senate this season. And what I can tell you is those projects that are successful, unfortunately right now it doesn't seem like they're super successful because the legislature, what they've done in regards to geo bonding. But what projects are really favored in regards to those committees are projects that have this information. They're able to provide them not only with this information on the tour, they're able to have it as part of the packet and presentation, and really help shore up any concerns or questions for groups advocating for funding. And while sometimes the B3 components can be frustrating, for us to make sure that we look at what that financial obligation could be is really helpful as we move forward. Understanding the pause in advocating for this year is frustrating because those kiddos deserve and need the support. For us to have this time to make sure that we get all of this information together will only make this facility better as we move forward. So I support the request.
Commissioner Krabanoff.
Yeah, I was pretty much going to express thanks to the committee too for the urgency and just keeping this moving. It's so important that we stay ahead of this. I am kind of curious on the pre-design when they look at it. are they working mainly off just the square footage, just to start with? I mean, what, you know what I'm saying? We had a provider give us some idea what something may look like, but yet at the same time, so I'm just curious how perhaps a provider along with them, how does this work initially?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Krabanoff, as part of our building committee process, what will end up happening is our solutions will be invited to the meeting to provide some understanding with their understanding that this board ultimately holds the development purse strings. We also need their institutional knowledge of what would be the requirements. As you see through part of the contract, Klein McCarthy is also going to be participating in tours of multiple facilities, PRTF facilities, to get different ideas and better understand those. If you do note, if the board were to move forward with the contract due to the, I guess our need of our quick turnaround to have something ready for the tour, we would be looking at having our first meeting next Monday.
Excellent. Okay, thank you for that.
A lot of effort's gone into this from both staff and Commissioner Mojo and Commissioner Krabanoff on this. We have got, how many counties now?
I believe it's 21 with 3 tribal nations.
And 3 tribal nations that are supporting this because it's a critical need, not just all over Minnesota, but particularly there's a complete absence of these facilities in western Minnesota. And I fully agree with getting in front of this, and Klein McCarthy have been great to work with on our other projects, and this is a good move. So having said that, is there any more discussion? And we have a motion and second, don't we? No, we do not.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But I'll make it.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, and we will go back to, it's 9:02, and we have got a public hearing for a petition to rezone.
Make a motion to open the meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second, open the meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same, opposed, same sign. Okay, meeting is open.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. So we have before you a petition to rezone. I want to just kind of show you what parcel we're looking at here. Get that pen. So this is a property north of Moorhead. Here we go. So it's about an 18-acre parcel north of Moorhead on right off the end of 34th Street. And my map froze, so it's
It's County Road 18, right?
Yep, 18 and 34th Street, so just north of the Resource Recovery Center. And so this petition is to rezone this property from agricultural general with an urban expansion district tier 1 overlay to agricultural general urban expansion district tier 2 overlay. So under the current zoning in the UED tier 1, we've got limited development permitted. And with the proposed zoning would allow for more development options on this parcel. So you can see it here highlighted. So this lighter blue is all urban expansion district tier 1. Tier 2 is actually right next door. I went over this already. So the current use of this property is residential. There's a history of ag use on it as well. There's a residence, 2 large storage buildings, and a small storage building on the property. Just to give you a little bit of history about the urban expansion district. So it used to just be one district at a time in the in the 90s and the early 2000s. Cities like Barnesville actually had an urban expansion district around them too. It was one zoning district. The whole purpose of it is to encourage orderly growth near cities as they expand and as property is annexed into the cities. Also to prevent any premature investment in utilities or facilities as well. And so there was a petition to rezone a property near Moorhead from urban expansion district to agricultural general. And so as a result of and they were trying to do a storage business. As a result of this, the outcome was a multi-tiered urban expansion zoning district. So tier 1 basically encompasses the urban expansion district as a whole roughly encompasses the 2-mile extraterritorial area of the cities of Dilworth and Moorhead. So when it was split into tiers, tier 1, it basically covers the primary growth areas of Dilworth and Moorhead. And tier 2 basically extends and covers that gap between those primary growth areas and the edge of that 2-mile extraterritorial area. So when the Planning Commission considered this request, they were considering this related to our comprehensive plan goals and objectives. From the comprehensive plan, commercial and industrial goal category, we have a goal to promote the incorporated communities of Clay County as prime locations for commercial and industrial development, and to encourage commercial and industrial development that is in harmony with future land use plans or city leadership to occur in future urban growth areas of incorporated communities. And as well, intergovernmental coordination, establishing comprehensive growth management strategies in coordination with local jurisdictions to preserve rural character of Clay County and encourage healthy and vital communities. Objective under that goal would be to partner with cities and townships on the planning and development of planned urban growth areas. So the petitioner in this particular property is looking to develop commercial storage, warehousing, or one of the broader uses that would be permitted in the urban expansion district tier 2. He believes that the 18-acre lot is currently underutilized for residential use. Provided a number of justifications for the rezoning. First one being that it already is bordered by tier 2 zoning. Wouldn't have any negative effect on the current level of county costs or services to the described property. There's already established roadways and property access. Moorhead City Growth Plan showing this to be largely heavy industrial, light industrial, or ag. And then providing more development options would add more value to the city and the county without adding, in this case, without adding any substantive negative aspects for current or future planning concerns. And then also just looking at the surrounding properties, you have a lot of commercial and industrial and ag uses as well as some rural residential uses. We did receive some comments on this. City of Moorhead, they don't have any issue with this rezoning request. They don't anticipate moving north just because they would kind of have to hop and skip over American Crystal Sugar, the city wastewater treatment plant. Also, the future land use map for the city of Moorhead has this area for their future zoning as transitional, so they don't have any specific land uses mapped out for this area at all. And we did not receive any comment from Oakport Township. So some considerations, this would be compatible with the City of Moorhead Comprehensive Plan, be compatible with Clay County's Comprehensive Plan as well, would allow for some limited commercial development of the parcel, and would not, just going from that UED Tier 1 to Tier 2, it's not a huge change, and so I wouldn't really permit any future incompatible development. Any questions for me at all?
Mr. Campbell?
Not so much questions, but just a couple, little additional information. About a mile to the west of there is, I think, is the Track 3 area of the annexation agreement with the city of Moorhead and Oakport Township. And Track 3 was considered transitional, and what's already there too is already some storage type facilities. So I believe the request here, and I certainly agree with the findings of the Planning Commission that this is an appropriate use for this property. And, I just think it makes sense to offer that ability, and there's a need for it. We can talk about that too. There's a need by a lot of people for storage that they would rather see them find some places to store it than to have it in their yards. So I think it's a good deal.
Any other? Frank?
Why wouldn't we go further with this tier 2? Why would we just do this one piece of, could we go further with it, or do we have to do parcel by parcel out there?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Gross, we could go further with it. I have had a meeting with the city staff of Moorhead and Dilworth to talk about the urban expansion district and maybe some future changes. As you know, we're doing our code update, and so looking at some potential changes there. Once the code updates be complete, be looking at the city of Moorhead's kind of their growth area plans and the city of Dilworth growth area plans, and tweaking our urban expansion district tiers to match what they have coming for their growth area plans in the future. So that's, definitely something that will need to be changed, and not just on a parcel by parcel basis.
Commissioner Mojo?
The fact that we have this tier 1 and tier 2, and it has been 9 years since we met, is astounding to me. If you recall, it was really in response to those storage units in South Moorhead. And I think we did come to a really amicable solution with the city of Moorhead. I do think it's appropriate, as Commissioner Gross said, to reevaluate what those look like. Growth trends have changed a little bit, and certainly with Moorhead's downtown redevelopment focus, as you had at the Planning Commission last night, Moorhead really has a lot of focus on what that will look like, and making sure landowners are able to utilize their properties as they need in a responsible way. I don't have the map on my computer right now, but how much farther does that tier 1 go north? Does it follow the entire section north?
Yes, I believe
Okay,
so.
So is the section line the cutoff there?
Here, I'll see if I can open this up again without freezing it.
Yeah, that's fine, sorry.
No worries.
Well, because right across, the east border is tier 2, but I just didn't know how much farther north in that section it went.
So it would stop here roughly.
And their properties on the south, right there. Okay,
Yep, right over here.
thank you.
Mr. Chair, were you done, Commissioner Wood? The only other thing that I would always have some concern about, but I believe it's in the findings of fact, is in regards to ingress and egress and potential traffic concerns. Obviously, there's certain times a year that County Road 18 can get to be pretty busy, and a lot of it with beat trucks and that type of thing. So I think there's always got to be some consideration to what's currently going on in that road, and I'm assuming that Highway has chimed in on this.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Campbell, yes. And regardless of the zoning, whatever the proposed development would be for the future, and this property would have to conform to the access management policy as well of the county.
And furthermore, the proposal will have a hearing based on, or for the Planning Commission, so we can make sure and identify those
Correct.
components.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I would move the, we got to close the hearing first. Yes, never mind.
Well, is there any public? Any public comment?
Yeah.
We have a
I know
public
Rick is.
comment on this.
Yep.
Yes?
Thanks.
I'm the one who owns the property and kind of requesting this.
Any questions for Mr. Nymark?
Mr. Chair, I move we close the hearing.
Is there any other public comment?
Nope.
Okay.
There's somebody else here, I didn't know.
Any other comment? If not, we have a motion to close the meeting.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. At this point, I'd entertain a motion if there's not further discussion.
Mr. Chair,
Okay.
the Planning Commission had walked through the facts of findings, so I will make a motion to approve the rezoning of the subject property from the Ag General Urban Expansion District 1 tier to Ag General Urban Expansion District 2 tier.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Further discussion. If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Next, we have the county budget update. Mr. Larson, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, as we're wrapping up our, or starting our 2025 process, we're wrapping up our 2023 budget update, budget process, and so wanted to provide the board an update of where we sit as of today. And so before you this morning, we have a number of different documents, both for 2023. We'll talk about where we sit from a 2024 perspective, and also give you an update on our sales tax collection. And so the first item within the packet that you have is the 2023 budgeted revenues and expenditures. We didn't anticipate going through each line by line here, but again, if you have specific questions, please let us know. We are going to highlight several different areas through this process that are out of alignment and would most likely bring questions for you. So the first item that we want to touch base on from a revenue and expenditure standpoint is motor vehicle. As you see, there's $144,544 above what was expected. Just of note that $47,556 of that was a grant that they received from the state. And then the other piece, this is an area I think that's important to note, is that this board over the last several years has put a number of resources in staffing to make sure that we've been in a situation where we can serve the public in a timely fashion. Not only have we been successful in having wait times, I'd use the word plummet on most days at the motor vehicle. We're in a process where we have revenues over expenditures, which is not in something that we've seen in past years. So that's a number of positives there. The next item has to do with our audit. As you see that we spent less money than what was anticipated. In working with Lori, our audits kind of fluctuate depending on when that payment comes out over the years. And so it may be a little lower this year, and we may see a higher payment next year. The item underneath that is in the treasurer's item, has to do with the interest. As you recall, and we'll touch base again here on the revenues, the revenue funds in a little bit here, but as you recall, last year we had a paper transaction that impacted our general fund by about 42%. And so this year with the interest rate shift, we fluctuated back the other way. And so we had interest on our investments that were higher, and that also on that paper adjustment, we came back $1,679,978 back from where we had lost on paper previously. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in our fund discussion. IT had a savings of roughly around $118,976. The attorney's office, $91,432. Again, part of that was brought about by openings within Brian's department, along with insurance savings. Maintenance had a savings of $275,006. Again, that has to do some with partially, I think, we shifted the costs of the buildings to be more individualized with the mild winter. We saw some savings from the standpoint of not having to spend as much on heating and also snow removal, at least in the spring, or excuse me, the fall portion. And so we saw a benefit there. The Sheriff's Department, $492,497. Again, some of that savings was through open positions. It was through insurance. We had some funding in the criminal justice aid that impacted some of the things from that budget. The jail had revenues over expenditures of $838,511. Although we've closed the gap in the hiring positions, we did have some there. We had less expenses, and for the first time, because we've been able to have a full staffing within the facility, we were able to have over $100,000 in boarding from other counties. And so I know that was a goal of this board when we built the facility, and so it's beneficial to see that impact on the budget. Also, probation had a savings of $315,079. If you recall, last year's legislature worked to take the three different forms of probation and try to equalize the funding, and so we received a grant that had an impact on the overall bottom line. And again, the last item, as I previously mentioned, the county received $942,019 in public safety funds. That was not anticipated in this budget. And so those are kind of the high-end level that to address that. There are over $6.3 million in just those items. And so in reviewing the other areas, a lot of them are smaller pieces. Again, positions of whether they weren't filled in a timely fashion, savings of health insurance, and then having some additional revenues higher than what was anticipated. Does anyone have any questions on anything else on this document?
Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is in regards, there's a couple smaller items that it doesn't look like they've requested funds. It's in the budget, but can you just explain the appropriations for the Northwest Regional Development Commission, Cultural Resources Development, and then the Minnesota Rural County Caucus? It doesn't look like we'd sent payments on those.
Specifically with the cultural diversity, they did forget to submit for last year, and so you're going to see this for this year. You'll see a double payment in those situations, and I'll have to look in the other two situations.
We can make that adjustment once we do make payment.
Okay.
So it'll reflect in 2023.
Okay.
As long as we get it pretty soon.
Is anyone on that board? No? All right. It's just odd.
Any other questions for?
Maybe just to follow up, and I'm not trying to be nitpicky, but as a steward of the finances of the county, which we all are, I'm hopeful that we're funding programs that are of vital need to the funds in which they get. And so if there's not even a request for the funds, it makes me question the need for the funds. And I think we can, I understand sometimes things happen, but I want that to be well known, because it is concerning, because there are other areas of our budget that really desperately need those funds.
Commissioner Mojo, Mr. Chair, as part of each budget process in June, those who have received funding from this board the previous year receive a letter. Again, they anticipate whether they anticipate needing those funds or requesting funds. And if they're as part of this, they have responded that they wish to have funds, but you're correct in that they may not have invoiced for those.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Campbell.
Thank you, Steve. I guess my feeling on that, you know, these are significant numbers. The budget is a major part of what our responsibilities as a board are. And for me to properly review this and to even to raise the questions that I have, I would certainly would have appreciated if this could have been in our packet to review instead of, I mean, I first saw this at 8:20 this morning.
Sure.
And, you know, so to be able to develop questions that I might have, I don't even have any right now because I haven't even had time to review the document. Mm-hmm. So I guess in the future, if we're going to have budget issues on the agenda, I would like to see us have the ability to review it prior to the meeting so that we can ask the questions that are important to us. So that's just a...
Sure. We will do that.
Any other questions or comments?
All right, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, the second document that you have has to do with your fund balance comparisons from year to year. And so as you take a look at the first item is the general fund. Again, as we addressed that we had increased interest and also the paper change of $1.6 million. And so we went from a fund balance of $8,824,047 to $635,873, or an adjustment of $4,811,826.
Can I just ask, Lori, can you explain what we mean when we say a paper
What happens
adjustment?
is we have to recognize the market value of our investments. And so last year, say we had a $100,000 investment, but it was only worth, say, $90,000 or $92,000. So that $8,000 difference, we actually have to recognize as a decrease in interest revenue. So last year we had overall a $4.2 million adjustment. This year we've got almost a $1.7 million adjustment the other way. So that 1 year loss, we probably won't have that again, I hope, because of the interest situation.
So the one you were talking about, that bigger number, was a loss.
It was a loss, correct. But it wasn't actually, like, we didn't sell any of the investments. If we would have sold them, we actually would have recognized that. It would have been a real loss. But since we hang on to those and we don't cash those in until they're due, we'll break even on those, but we'll be gaining back that loss over time.
Is that like a Gadsby rule or something? Yeah. Thank you.
Other questions? Go ahead, Steve.
The second item is road and bridge. We adjusted from 22 at $5,162,457 to $6,928,470. Again, this is a little bit challenging because depending on when the project was completed, the money in, money out can be a little bit misleading. The other piece is that we did receive roughly $1 million more in aid last year than what we had anticipated. And so that is a good portion of that 1.7 million. Social services went from $11,109,420 to $11,661,856, or an increase of $552,445. Again, when we look at social services, we had some administrative aid that we received that was not anticipated of $174,000. With the opening of positions that we had, we also saw savings in salary and also roughly $85,000 of not making insurance payments. And then we also, as you're aware, even though detox is a separate program, funding is currently looked at through the social service department, and detox revenues over expenditures last year of $165,000. So those could be attributed to that adjustment. When we look at the building fund, again, excuse me.
In regards to social services, so that if I recall correctly, in the 2023 budget, we anticipated having to use some of the social services reserves to balance the 2023 budget.
Last year, I believe it was 350,000.
Okay, but as this shows, we wouldn't have needed to do that. Am I correct? Okay, I just want to know that I'm on the right track here. Thank you.
And then the building fund that's related to Joe Olson, and our facilities director. Again, that has money added to it each year. We adjusted from $53,620 to $84,096, so a remaining $30,476. Again, that fluctuates depending on the projects needed. Internal service, again, this board has made the decision that rather than pay for large projects at each year when they're needed, that we save a portion of that each year. And so our fund balance has adjusted in 2022 from $9,526,246 to $11,045,522, or an adjustment of $1,519,276. Again, that can be attributed to a couple different things. Number one, inflation has impacted this area. Lori's worked closely with a number of our departments to make sure that the adjustments, as this board heard a couple of weeks ago from Justin, just the motor graders, for example, have gone up about $300,000 per machine. And so the other piece that we looked at here is Justin didn't purchase anything out of his internal service last year, but as you know from this year, he's looking to do that. And so again, part of the adjustment was to some inflationary things, but part of it also was there weren't as many purchases out of that account, and so we're prepared for the future. Those conclude the levy fund balances. The next four items are part of our blanked.
Enterprise fund.
Thank you. Our enterprise funds, public health, solid waste, the family service center, and the juvenile center. Public health went from $1,730,535 to $2,697,720. Again, a significant portion of the public health piece had to do with open positions. A number of the departments are short three or four positions throughout the entire year, and so that led to that $967,185. Solid waste saw a deficit of $350,882. Again, they went from $23,370,701 to $23,019,819. We actually saw an increase in as far as trash that was delivered, and so I think we part of that was just in I think getting used to the operations of the new facility. Family Service Center, again, we had a minor increase from 2022 of $1,949,392 to $1,990,998, or an increase of $41,592. And then lastly, the juvenile facility had an increase of from $6,596,401 to $6,883,241, or an increase of internal service of $286,840. And with that, I'd yield for any questions.
Commissioner Campbell.
Lori, in regards to the juvenile detention balance there, that's for the entire, both secure and non-secure,
Correct, it's because that's broken out, as you know, between the secure and non-secure.
Yeah, but on here it's not.
It isn't, it's together.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I don't know.
Okay, I guess that, certainly when we get into, and as Commissioner Ebinger and I'm sorry. As Commissioner Ebinger and I serve on that committee, one of the things that, we have discussions, and there's always other member counties ask questions about what those reserves are as it pertains to secure and making that. So maybe if you could give us some information in that regard.
Absolutely, and also James does connect with me before those
Right,
meetings, just to
right,
make sure that his
right.
numbers that he's delivering to you are correct and accurate.
Very good. Right. Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, Commissioners, just a side note, based on some of the comments that were brought up earlier and discussions probably moving forward here, is when we look at our fund balances, board has I guess, set aside some of these dollars for different projects. So we've set $500,000 towards the 2024 budget. This board has also approved $278,000 of reserve for the purchase of the Holly shop. And then the board most recently approved about $200,000 for the reconstruction of the detox facility when the juvenile center moves in. And so I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware of those actions that you've already taken. All right, the next document that we have is the revenues and expenditure document for this year. Again, as we've kind of say with each updates, the challenge with the revenues section is they're generally anywhere from 6 weeks to 2 months behind, so they're never really a true reflection of where we're at. We really spend a majority of our time focusing on our expenses. Lori has pulled this information through April, so it would be roughly 33% of the year. And so as you look on the right-hand columns, a percentage of the budget, we are in a really good spot from an expense standpoint. Again, the items that you see that are above that 33% are generally items that we pay out quarterly or one time a year. This also doesn't reflect that there's no 2024 property tax in the revenue section either. And so from a budget standpoint, the county is in a sound position. That I'd yield for any questions on either the revenues or the expenses.
Any questions? Thanks.
All right, the last item that I have for you, or that we have for you this morning, is the half-cent sales tax related to the correctional facility and law enforcement center. If you take a look at the last column on the right, you look and see that last year we collected $4,662,292.12. This was a 9.01% increase over the 2021-22 collections. And so again, a positive note from a budgeting standpoint, the principal interest payment is right around $3.9 million. And so again, we had enough funding to cover the full payment for those two programs through facilities through the sales tax, which has been consistent. This year, the first, we don't have it listed, but the first 3 months of this year have been right on of what we received for last year for each of those months. And so we're not seeing any growth, but we're also not seeing necessarily any decline. And so for the half-cent sales tax, we're in a good position. Again, as we've talked about each year, originally from a planning perspective, this board I had set aside bonding dollars at the end of roughly $400,000. We also used wind tax, and we were able to return those funds back to the budget, overall budget, because of the high amount of sales tax that we've collected. That I'd yield for any questions.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. I'm going to get on a soapbox a little bit, but first I want to thank the public for their support in this. When we talk about the dialogue and how we really advocated for the need and how we could pay for this locally, this really is exciting to see, understand that inflation, obviously things cost more, so we're going to be seeing a little bit of increases because of that. But as all of you know, there's a hold at the legislature right now for local option sales taxes, and you know, there's different reasons for why there's those holds. But if you go back to my comments earlier about the lack of the legislature allocating bonding dollars for projects, this is the method in which local entities have to locally have the public decide if they want to support a project or not. And so if we're not going to have the ability to do these for the foreseeable future, and then if the legislature is not going to allocate bonding dollars for local entities to build projects, how else are we supposed to do that? And, I think as we continue the dialogue on the number of things that we're talking with the legislature about, this certainly is one of them. But I appreciate the fact that we were able to take some of those other funding mechanisms and throw that back into the budget to help pay for other components. But these numbers, are really promising, and they're good to see as we whittle down what that payment is.
Mr. Campbell.
Well, I'm certainly thankful that we're able to collect on online. At one point in time, I don't know that was necessarily the case, and that certainly is helpful for paying for this facility. And it looks like some of our, this being able to maybe even be done early, there's a potential for it now with the numbers that I'm seeing.
Just to kind of bootstrap on Commissioner Mojo's observation, the taxpayers in this county, it's been my experience, and that experience started when we all worked towards the law enforcement center and the correctional facility funding. They pay for things that we can justify, and we go to them and tell them what the facts are, and they're supportive. And it is concerning that we may have movement in St. Paul that would interfere with the ability of our taxpayers to let us know through issues such as the sales tax, what they consider important and what they're willing to pay. And that's not things that we need to roll over on the levy. And we all know that here, but the legislature apparently needs to wake up. But that's an argument for another day. But it's very salient when we look at our own budget. Anybody else? Well, I guess we're soapboxing now, but anyone else have any comments?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize for not getting the information to the full board prior to the packet, and next week I will have an agenda item for additional questions.
Do you want to move on to the next, our budget time?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we do each year, this time of year we start looking at the target dates and preparation adoption of the 2025 budget. And so before you this morning, you have a tentative dates for our timeline for this budget. Again, meeting today for the timeline. Lori would be looking to put the budget packets out to our department heads by Friday, May 28th. The deadline for turning those in would have them about 3 weeks by June 17th. Ms. Johnson will compile those and forward on to my office by July 5th. We'll start the individual meetings with our department heads where we go line by line through each of those budgets. And once they're completed the following week, they come before this board for their first view by you as a commission. We're looking, by statute, we have to set the preliminary levy prior to October 1st, and we're looking to have that meeting where we would set the preliminary levy this year on September 16th. That allows us 1 week for any last-second adjustments if the boards were to wish to do that. We're looking at a truth and taxation this year of December 3rd. As you're aware, this year the AMC conference has been pushed back a week, and so that would allow us to have truth and taxation that first Tuesday in December, and we would be then looking to have the adoption 2 weeks later of a final levy in the 2025 budget on December 17th. That I would yield for any questions.
Commissioner Campbell.
Mr. Chair, and Steve, on your 8 items here on your timeline, the very first one, it says May 7th, preliminary budget discussions with the county board and to set budget parameters. What are our parameters? What are we?
Well, I think that generally at the parameters during this time, you you as a board generally give us a target date of where you'd like to see us, and then we kind of bring that back to our departments to have them keep that in mind as they move their budgets forward.
I guess one of my concerns that I have this year in terms of the budget, and let's face it, is going to be what we're going to be talking about here pretty soon in regards to the wage study. You know, and you know, the last time we did a wage study, there ended up being a significant increase, quite frankly. I mean, between what was the increase plus the COLA that year was significant. And, you know, so, you know, I think in terms of my idea, the message needs to be that we need to be thinking about that and understanding that, you know, at this point, we don't know what that's going to be. Right. But at the same point in time, we have to be cautious of what all we're going to be asking for with the ideas this in mind, so that we can, going back to that levy, we can maintain a fair amount anyway that we're going to have to pass on to our taxpayers through real estate tax. So that's my comment.
Commissioner Craven.
Yeah, just a question follow up on that. So what is the timeline on the wage study? When do we know?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Kravinoff, it's actually the next item. So rather than me speculate, I'll let you hear it right from Tessa.
Very good.
Any other questions?
No questions, but probably, you know, we can give our parameters possibly once we have that information. I think all of us, and we've talked in all of our different meetings, are aware that there's some strains in regards to areas for service and different areas that will affect the budget. And so I think it will be difficult. I'll also say, from someone that pays ag land tax, that's painful too, so.
Anything else? Okay. So we'll move on to market study presentation.
Mr. Chair, if I could just get a motion from the board to accept this timeline.
Okay, of course. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the timeline as written.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay.
Thank you.
Steve, while they're getting ready, in regards to that public meeting on truth and taxation.
Yes.
Do we have a required deadline to have that?
We can't have it before the second or the third weekend of, or week of November, but there isn't a timeline later.
Yeah,
we just have to we have to have the adoption prior to the end of the year.
I didn't realize this was going to be, like the AMC was a week later this year, so I've made other plans.
Oh.
Okay, we're going to take a short break whenever you guys are ready. We're back, and we're on the agenda item 8, the 2024 market study presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Thanks for having us this morning. I want to first introduce Tessa Melvin. She is from the David Drown Associates, and she has been the one that has been working on our market study for us. They were also, if you recall, David Drown Associates also did our market study in 2019, which we implemented in 2020. And Tessa did that one as well. So she's very familiar with our positions and our county, and so we're glad to have her. She will discuss her qualifications in the next couple slides, and then this is kind of an overview of what the market study, what the expectations are, and kind of give you an idea of how this will proceed going forward. As you recall, in the union contracts for 2023 through 2025, there was an agreement that we would do a market study in Clay County, and so we are upholding our part of the bargain for that. In 2020, as Commissioner Campbell alluded to, we did have a 7.42% increase. That was 5.42% plus the 2% COLA. So that was a fairly large increase. And we also increased our 22 positions, which increased in grade during that market study. As you recall, this year we went to one-year steps between steps 8 and 12. So that was a change that we made also as part of the bargaining units. And as you know, we've had a lot of turmoil in the workforce since COVID. And so I think that this market study comes at a good time so that we're through COVID. The workforce is starting to slow down a little bit, or maybe not slow down, but even out a little bit. But there's still some real peaks and valleys that Tessa will address. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Tessa.
Thank you, Board Chair and board members. Today, I'm just going to describe a little bit of who we are, just because I don't know all of you. Describe, again, that project scope, and then there will be a closed session for labor strategy as you prepare for your negotiations. So just a little bit about David Drown Associates. He was a civil engineer by trade and created the company about 20 years ago. 8 years ago, our clients came to us and said, we really need help with HR. So we kind of formed the human resource part of it, then doing executive recruitment, org studies, and then class and comp. We mostly just work in Minnesota. We have one or two North Dakota clients and one Wisconsin. And then myself, I have 15 years of city and county government experience before coming to DDA. So I worked in Dakota County. I was an assistant in Shoreview and then a city administrator in Maple Plain. And I've been with DDA for 8 years. I also have a doctorate in public administration. Our team, other people that work, I think the big thing that's different between us and most consultants is we've all worked in the public sector, either in city or county or the Met Council, so we understand kind of the different various roles of that. So our project scope is, we had an initial project team meeting to do that market analysis and then look at calibrating a pay structure and then reviewing results, prepare budget implementation. So kind of just that market analysis similar to what we did last time. Benchmarks, I always get the question like, who should you have as your benchmark? How many benchmarks should you have? That should really be based on you. I don't like to say you look like so-and-so or you act like them. But I think it's important to look at who surrounds you, who hugs you, because that's a good indicator of who you take from or who you take from you. But I like to look at indicators that matter to the board, like tax capacity, population, revenues, and expenditures, kind of what sets Clay County apart, and then looking at who looks like you, because regionally, maybe there's not a good comparison, but maybe there's someone else out there that does the same thing or has the same entity, especially with your juvenile center, very different. So we need to make sure when we look at benchmarks, we're trying to include that as well. So these were the benchmarks we used last time as well. And then for the juvenile center, we have specific ones that are like that in the state because there are very few. So we do try to pull those as well. Any questions on the benchmark?
Did we use Stearns County last time?
Oh, you added that. I'm sorry. Okay. Per your last discussion. That was my bad. Sorry.
Thank you.
And then benchmark positions. So when we look at a market study, you kind of look at the positions you want to look at. The project team identified these positions to go from the entry-level positions to department heads to represent unions, all of that. And so by selecting those benchmark lists, then we pull information on all of those. Looking at the market too, retention, recruitment areas, this was a list that was decided. And then market comparison. So I always get the question, where should we be in comparison to the market? And I always like to say, well, textbook would say within 5% you're highly competitive, 10% you're aligned somewhat with the market. Anything less than 10% of market, we would highlight and say, why is it like that? Is it an outlier? Is it a position that just doesn't match? And making sure we kind of address the why. The why do we do this study? It is always painful. I know you guys don't look forward to seeing me. But we're trying to do this so that you guys can stay on top of it. I always say it's like your pavement improvement plan, where you look at the highway conditions every year and you do small things to do it. This case, you were asked by unions to do a market study, but also looking at just making sure any duties that change, we look at that, changes in organizational relationships, addressing like the recruitment and retention issues if you have any, and then the statutory compliance is pay equity. So how you pay employees, you don't get to just decide, it has to be in alignment with pay equity. So every 3 years, the county goes through a pay equity report where it reports the positions, how many male, female, and how you pay them. The compliance does, you have to be in compliant or you could lose county government aid.
Tessa, also for the board's information, we had to do ours this year. This was our 3rd year. So that has been already submitted and approved. And so we've passed that pay equity and got our certification for the next 3 years. So that's good.
Yeah, and one of the questions I always get is, pay equity, does it look at the market? No, pay equity only looks at how you pay internally. It does not do any market analysis to say where you should be competitively. Project objectives, I always get, what is this kind of? So we're just making sure we're looking at classifications, if there's any FLSA questions, making sure your pay is competitive, internally equitable, policies and procedures that go into that, we'll look at that, and just making sure your system is easy to administer, maintain, and transparent for people. I'm not doing a staffing study. I'm not reorganizing the county. I'm not trying to eliminate positions or strategy to either increase or reduce pay. I'm just here to look right at the market, tell you where you are, and then have that discussion of where do you want to be, how fast do you want to get there, and having that pay philosophy of where does the board feel it needs to be. So the classification of the job, you'll hear that term, that's really looking at that job description for pay equity and saying, here's its comp worth points. Counties use all different kinds of systems. We're trained in 25. They all look at job descriptions very similarly, but that's how you determine that internal equity. The comp plan, either wages, grid, or steps, that is really kind of how do you pay employees, how do you move them through, and that's set up by market competitiveness, updated job descriptions, and then internal equity. So I always say those 3 things kind of determine what your pay grid looks like. Right now, factors that we're seeing that are influencing the market, like Darren alluded to, it is a volatile labor market right now. There's a lot of movement. The retail industry, starting positions out at $18, $20 an hour, that's definitely pushing counties in their entry-level positions of where they are. There's labor shortage, so less applicants applying for the job, or less that are qualified. So we see in any position that requires a licensure or certification, there are less people that have that and are qualified. Increased turnover in the public sector, people aren't staying as long as they used to, having completely career changes or moving. Other entities are doing this the same time, so that's definitely moving it. We are seeing some asks from some of the unions to 6 to 15%, just that's what we're seeing. The public defender office, their increase up to 33% in 2024, that's definitely going to push those assistant attorney levels. The removal of the salary cap too is definitely impacting how the department heads are paid, county admin, like all of that. Just in looking at the pay grid recalibration and benchmark, and then again, that licensure we're seeing. So that's kind of like, if you ask me, the 10,000 foot kind of what we're seeing overall before we dig into your data, that's kind of what we're seeing. And you guys have probably seen this up close and personal. And then this is just your pay grid. I always like to just show just kind of how you get there. is basically the grades are on the left side, and how you get into your grade is your pay equity points. Those points align, and then how you pay is per grade, the steps and movement. So like I said, with the market, once we look at that information, the board has decisions of where do they want to be in relation to the market. So kind of that pay philosophy of where do we think we need to be competitive? How fast do you want to get there? So that could mean number of steps, step movement. Do you have bigger step increases in the beginning so you get people in and then you're a great place to work and you slow it down? Generally, the market is 8 to 10 steps. So that's something to think about. And then addressing any recruitment or retention issues that you have or that we're seeing in the market, so you could be a little proactive on that. Are there questions? I gave you kind of the what we're doing, but I want to make sure you guys, all your questions are answered.
Mr. Chair. I just have one question. Thank you. In your professional opinion and having worked with us in the past, do you feel that the benchmark positions that we've provided to you for this study is a fairly good sample of all of our positions?
Yeah, because what it will do is it will show us based on the different grades and stuff, it'll show us kind of where you're flowing to the market. And if there is, I always say if there's a peak, you're overpaying that. So is it the grade or is it the position? You have a couple of positions per each grade. And if there's a valley, you're underpaying it. So is it the position or the grade? It'll be a good handful to kind of see where your grid is currently calibrated at. And I always say that's a good place to start, because if there are jobs outside of that, there's a recruitment or retention, you can look at that too, but it'll give you a good overview of where your grid is calibrated and kind of how do you prepare for your negotiations and set where does the board want to be year 1, year 2, that kind of. Ideally, all of them would be great,
right?
But there's a cost to that. And again, when you look at all positions, you aren't going to get apples to apples. So these are the ones that we also feel that are most apples to apples in counties that have similar jobs that are most aligned.
My guess is today this is probably an interesting topic that a lot of our employees may be watching.
Sure.
And with that in mind, I guess again what I'm another way to ask my question is, even though somebody's position isn't listed here, that does not mean that the sampling that we have here would still not include their positions. Am I correct in that?
Well, we're looking at those grades, so it would include it. And I know like the PDQs you guys have, if there were significant changes, we would look at that if there is a reason for a reclassification request. So I always say this is kind of step 1 of the dashboard, like do we need oil, do we need gas, those type of things. And again, some of those questions can be if maybe there is a reclassification request, or if there's a position on here that we're seeing in the market, you know what I mean? We'll look at some of those outside things too.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Krabanoff?
Yeah, I'm just curious, when we look at steps, you mentioned that, and I see here that market's generally 8 to 10 and we're higher than that. What are the pros and cons of that?
Sure. 8 to 10, I mean, is what we typically see. So sometimes people will want to get to the top faster, you know what I mean? But then there's no place to grow after that. So I always say I don't care how it is, but like if we see the market at 10, we're going to look at your step 10 to see where that kind of is to the market. Because if your step 10 is 10% under, but step 12 is right there, you're saying it takes an additional time to get there. So, you know, is that important to the board? And that's kind of the how fast you want to get there. It also helps when you hire people, you have kind of that where you place them into the step, you have more movement. Yeah. You know, some, like if you're in the utility industry, it's a 3-year process. So you get to the top at 3, but then you stay there. So it is kind of a recruitment and retention tool. I like this spread because it's typical what what you kind of see. You have a couple more, but it also rewards then for tenure and staying with the county and your work as you go.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
All right. Thank you, Tessa, for that information. What we are going to do now is go into closed session to talk a little bit about these are preliminary results. They're not the final results, but it will kind of give you an idea of some of the preliminary work that David Drown Associates has done. We've provided them our grid. We've provided them the information that they need as far as what every employee is making. And so we'll probably go into a little bit more detail in the closed session. And this will have to do with eventually how we bargain next year with the unions as well. So,
Mr. Chair, I would move to close pursuant to, regarding labor negotiation, pursuant to the statutes provided in the agenda.
We have a second.
Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Discussion on closing, having a closed session. If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, closed session. Session. Next item on the agenda, and we appreciate everyone's patience. We're running a little bit behind. Children's Mental Health Local Advisory Council Annual Report. And Michelle Thordahl.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, hope we can stand by. Sarah's.
He's being a lifesaver right now.
Seriously.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, Chair Ebbinger, Commissioners. I'm Michelle Thordahl. I'm the Chair of the LAC, and I'm also a Social Services Supervisor here at Clay County.
Good morning, I'm Joni Maidenwald.
Get the green one.
Yep. There you go.
Okay. Good morning. I'm Joni Maidenwald. I am a therapist and division director at the Village Family Service Center, and I also co-chair the LAC with Michelle.
So we just want to thank you for your time and all the work that you do to address the mental health needs of the children of Clay County. Our Children's LAC has had a busy year. Some of the projects that we've worked on is we really have wanted to bring in some guest speakers to speak to our membership to really try to identify some of the gaps in the mental health needs. Some of those speakers have included Representative Keeler. We had a representative from Prairie St. John's to talk about their expansion of services, and also had First Link come and talk to the group about, give us an update on 988 and other services that they provide. Some of the mental health awareness activities that we've participated in, we've again purchased a billboard advertisement that ran last year in May for Mental Health Awareness Month in Moorhead. That billboard is running again this year too. We also received a request to donate to the Youth Leadership Council for scholarships for children to attend some of their services. So that was something that we thought was important. And then, of course, our survey. So we really came off of a year where we had a lot of success last year with our survey responses. So we were trying to hope to just kind of keep roll with that. We did change it up a bit. We wanted to identify how long people had been living in Clay County that were responding to the survey. So we added a couple questions, but we felt like keeping it short and sweet was really the key to getting a big response rate. We did receive 294 responses for the parent survey, which is an increase from last year. And the provider survey, we had 54 responses, which was down about 21, but we were still happy with the response rate. So going into the parent survey results, our first question was, how do you know how to access mental health services if you needed to? 30% said they were very, very knowledgeable of how to access services. And you can kind of look at the data, it speaks for itself there. Question 2, have you experienced any barriers in accessing mental health services for your children? I thought this was interesting too. 38% reported no to 37.8% saying I've never had to access services. So just kind of interesting. It also just depends on who responds to the survey as well. But some of the barriers that were identified from the surveys include the long wait times to access services and appointments, lack of inpatient facilities in the area, a lot about autism delays or lack of services in the area, access to mental health services in rural areas, and then the affordability and cost of care is another barrier that was identified. Our question 3, are there services that you need that are not available in our county? Again, you're going to see some themes in these, and one of the things is more inpatient hospitalization options, residential care treatment options in the region, respite care. There's never enough providers to provide respite care for some of our kiddos with high mental health needs. Just more providers, more rural mental health options are some of the highlights. So for question 4, if your child receives mental health services, what have been the most helpful? And these are listed in order of most helpful to least helpful. The area that I kind of want to just speak about is, we had a really high response rate as far as the school counselors, school staff, and school-based mental health. So I thought that was interesting, and that was kind of another theme that we saw throughout this survey. So, and other comments regarding gaps in our children's mental health system of care, really the need to increase access to mental health appointments, available providers and resources, people talking about the difficulty in navigating the system, difficulty in the insurance, the affordability of care, lack of immediate help in a mental health crisis, and then a need for local psychiatric residential treatment facility and or a qualified residential treatment program for youth in Clay County. So we did ask where you lived and if you were responding to, and so that's why we asked where your zip code was. We had a huge response from the Holly community. 41% of the respondents were from Holly, so just thought that was interesting. And then our question 6 was, how long have you resided in Clay County? And I think it was, 89% have resided in Clay County for longer than 3 years.
So I'll share some of the highlights of the professional survey. So this was sent out and we have 54 respondents. And so these were individuals that provide care to the youth in our county, ranging from providers of housing case management, substance use disorder, school counselors, teachers, admin, therapists, probation. And so what we heard from them was, we first asked what percentage of their clientele that they work with are struggling to access adequate or appropriate mental health care. And what we saw was about 50% of their caseloads they felt were struggling to access care. In a follow-up to that, we asked of the families that they provide services to, do they have barriers in accessing the services? And we heard a resounding yes, with 81.5%. What were those barriers? Number 1 was transportation. The second most identified barrier was wait times. 3 and 4 kind of go together. It was no insurance or unaffordable insurance. And so again, going back to what Michelle was sharing about the cost of services. The 4th one then was completing paperwork, and the 5th highest was language barriers. And the next question that we asked was about the children and families that the providers are serving. Are there services that are not available or that are limited in availability? We heard them talk about wait lists again for therapy, psychiatric services, as well as autism services. All 3 of those, I would say, are pretty backed up in our county. We heard them talk about substance abuse treatment centers for youth, which is a dire need in our county, as well as skills services, psychiatry services, and lack of waivered services, to name a couple. In asking them what their role was with the family as a professional, 55% were school staff. So again, I think we were hearing a really loud voice from them, which does influence the responses and the data that we received back. Comments regarding gaps in our children's mental health system of care from the professionals' perspective was if all the schools could have mental health professionals on site, and so just more support at the schools with mental health professionals and with school counselors. Greater focus on prevention instead of responding after there's an issue been identified. More therapists, more focus on homelessness, and more combination of services for both mental health and substance abuse. So next, we'll talk about some of the successes in our county during the past year. So we identified successes being that the school-based mental health services are available in all 5 of the public schools within the county. The council focused on increasing participation from consumers with lived experience, and we continue to partner with the Clay County Youth Leadership Council, led by Crystal Johnson and Lacey Hubert, to increase the awareness of the LAC and increase membership among those that have lived experience. We continue to collaborate with the partners and have conversations that arise at the council meetings that are really helpful for the members. Networking is a very popular agenda item that happens monthly at the meetings. The parent and provider survey continues to have great response. You know, I think COVID and a year past COVID, I think there was one year we had 8 responses total to our survey. And so where we've come in the last couple of years is a huge success, and we continue to just kind of grow that awareness to get better data and understanding of what the needs are. Representative Heather Keeler attended a meeting and was seeking feedback and suggestions for legislation actions from the members of the LAC. And we continue to just advance awareness of various service offerings in our county from the speakers and the connections that we make with one another through the LAC.
So as far as the recommendations, wait times for children's mental health case management need to be reduced when possible. This service is key to children and families accessing the mental health system of care. Mental health agencies that are seeing a turnover with their mental health professionals, specifically in-home providers. They're losing providers who are choosing to go into private practice for higher wages while serving fewer clients. Mental health agencies are still seeing a great need for services, but lack of providers to serve families. Supporting efforts to increase reimbursement rates for state-funded insurances would allow agencies to pay higher rates and be more competitive with private practices. We need to continue to recruit and bring awareness to the shortages of pediatric psychiatrists, therapists, case managers, foster care providers, autism providers, and respite caregivers in our area. The group continues to identify an unmet need in the FM community is inpatient or outpatient adolescent substance abuse treatment programming. Continue to fund and support important social services programs such as respite, collaborative intensive bridging services, and mental health case management. Continue to promote the mobile crisis response program to ensure families are aware of the service, its benefit, and how it can be accessed. Continue to fund programs that support school-based mental health services and increase awareness of mental health jobs to foster more young adults into the field to increase providers. Now, we would like to ask the board to make a motion to approve the LAC membership, which is listed at the beginning of the presentation.
Move to approve.
I'll second the motion.
Have motion to second. Any discussion?
I'll just make a quick comment, if I may.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Maybe just to say, I don't miss this meeting, and I really enjoy it. One of the things that I find of great value, what you're bringing here is that I hear in bringing more providers to our LIC is the networking that goes on, and we just see a lot of what comes forward, a lot of aha moments, and I think it builds momentum. I also, with Rep. Keeler, a lot of the conversation with children's mental health were those early conversations in the development toward the PRTF possibility that we're working toward. So great work to the whole group, and enjoy being a part of it. So.
Thank you.
Any additional comments or questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passed.
Thank you. Lastly, we would like to ask the board to approve the proclamation for May being Mental Health Month. I believe that's also in your packets, and if the board would.
That's the next item.
Thank you.
Do we need to read it into the record, or can we just note that?
You could just note that. It would be up to the boards if they wish to read it.
Okay, given we got people waiting, I'll move us along here. Everybody have an opportunity to look at the Mental Health Month 2024 proclamation.
Mr. Chair, I move the proclamation for Mental Health Month for 2024.
Second.
A motion to second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, when they're coming up, just a question for Steve, with the next few proclamations coming up, will we splash that on the county webpage?
You certainly can do that.
Thank you.
Good point. Okay, next we have Jessica Mickelson here for a recognition of proclamation for Foster Care Appreciation Month in Clay County.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Jessica Mickelson. I am one of the supervisors for social services, and I have two of my licensing staff with me, and we will make this brief as well. For our first agenda item is the proclamation to recognize our foster care parents for Foster Care Appreciation Month. With me, I have Gail Burnside, who is one of our foster care licensor for children, and she is going to share just a brief story regarding one of our families.
Good morning, Commissioners. Okay, so I want to share this story. I thought last month Jessica was here and went over kind of our numbers and where we're at with homes and people that we're licensing. So I thought in honor of this month, I'd like to share a story. So in February of 2018, I met a young couple who had just applied for child foster care here at the county. Approximately 4 months later, they were approved and licensed to provide care for up to 3 children between the ages of 0 and 8 years old. And about 2 weeks later, after they became licensed, they accepted their first placement into their home, a newborn baby, and then 2 months later, we added another 9-month-old infant into their home. This family has now been licensed with us for close to 6 years, and they have had 17 full-time placements and provided respite care to numerous additional children. They have also adjusted their age range and are now licensed for ages 0 to 18 years old and have done so because of the need our county has had. They have provided care for sibling groups, teenagers, and even provided care for a teenager while she was pregnant, supported her during the birth of her child, and then continued to have the teenager and the baby in their home. Over the past 6 years, they have been a continual support to Clay County, and I have had numerous conversations where they have just stated, how can we help? I remember one time calling this foster mom. It was in the early evening hours when I needed a placement. She was driving to her rural home after she finished work, and without pause, she said, of course we can help. Turned around, drove back into Moorhead to meet the social worker and the child. This foster family has understood how important birth family contact is, birth parent contact, and has been able to establish supportive relationships with them. They have supported children's talents, needs, culture, race, and have been able to make a connection with each of the children they've had in their home and have continued relationships with some of the kids even after they left. Among all the positive experiences they've had, they always state it's not always easy to be a foster parent. At times, it's hard to understand the child protection system, Indian child welfare, and the legal process. They have struggled with children's behaviors, but have always put the children first, even when it has greatly impacted their own family and home life. They have learned that foster parents will experience their own loss and will grieve when a child leaves their home after being with them for a very long time, even though they know that reunification is best. And they also understand they must put their trust in the system, even when they always don't agree with the decisions being made. They have learned that they will hear tragic stories from children and will also see how deeply birth parents love their children, but often have huge obstacles to overcome. But given all of that, this family has continued to be licensed and has even grown their own family by adopting 3 children. They have done all of this over the past 6 years, while also both maintaining full-time jobs of their own. There are numerous stories and similar experiences from many of the foster families that we license. This is just one of the examples that I have. So in honor of May being Foster Parent Appreciation Month, please join me in thanking all of the foster parents we have here in Clay County. And we would like the Clay County Board of Commissioners to adopt the proclamation before them.
Thank you. Very moving story, and I know it's just one example. We have a lot of unselfish people in this community that step up, and a priority that I think this commission and certainly our staff is addressing the needs of the youth in our community, and this is a critical part of it. So very grateful for you sharing that story with us and with the public. Any comments or questions? Steve, could we get this also included on the county website?
Can we make a motion? I'll make the motion. We accept the proclamation.
All right. Do I have a second? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. I also have Julie Clare with me. She is one of our childcare licensors, and she's going to share just a little bit of data to provide an update on what work we're doing for promoting childcare licensing throughout the county.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to just share some things that our incentive program through our ARPA funds have increased our numbers with in-home family childcare. We have implemented a mentorship program. There are currently 5 long-term licensed providers who each have done 30-plus years in-home childcare. And they are willing to attend orientations, be a connection for new applications that are coming through, but is also a support for our ongoing licensed homes. They have been, they're offering support for even just filling out paperwork, finding trainings, and answering general questions. So they have really been enjoyed throughout the county with our licensed provider homes. We have had many compliments on that mentorship program from other agencies. I think it's unique to Clay County. No other county that I am aware of in the state, Minnesota, has that, and we are proud to continue that. Some of the other highlights are through our referral program, we have had 8 licensed homes that have referred others that have then become licensed in over a year capacity, and at full capacity with that, and then they receive a referral bonus. Our training and orientation numbers have gone up. We offer at least twice a year free training, no cost to the providers, and it's nice to see that that has increased as well. Orientation last month alone, we had the largest number that we have had in a long time. And out of that, we have had 6 applications come in through that already. Last year, the total applications were 18. This year alone, we have 14 already in process. We also have a family that has other daughters also getting licensed. So this mother has been licensed for 25 plus years, and now she has 3 daughters that are licensed, which is nice to see. They grew up in that environment and they wanted to continue. We have providers that are doing and willing to care for children after hours. So they do non-traditional after 5:30 to midnight most of the time, which is a need because some people just can't find care for their child at that time. And to continue with our recruitment efforts, we have done videos. We interviewed 4 long-term providers. We're in the process of the final editing for that, and then that will be online and hopefully out there for people to see. Really good questions that they answered, and they really gave a lot of input on their experience.
Thank you, Julie. At this time, we'd like to ask the board to adopt the proclamation to show our appreciation for our family child care providers in Clay County.
I'd move the proclamation.
I'll second the motion.
And Steve, additionally, let's get this on our site. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you for bringing
Mr.
this up.
Chair, Jessica, and for those of you, I think it's important for us to recognize the good work that you're all doing. As we hear often, this is not only about childcare, but it also deals economically throughout our region. And to hear these numbers that you're seeing in-home childcare, that just helps the whole process that we're trying to deal with the needs of available childcare so people can go out in the workforce. Workforce is a huge issue for us, and one of the detriments to that is childcare. So thank you and the same with foster care. I mean, I've known a couple of the foster care people that have been doing this for years, and they're incredible people. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I didn't comment on your stories because I didn't think you wanted me to cry today. So I just appreciate what you're doing. Thank you.
All right, next up, Sheriff. Chief Deputy.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Thanks for having us here this morning. First off, I'd like to just recognize that this week is National Correctional Officer Week. And I'd like to publicly thank all of our correctional officers that are working over in our correctional center for their hard work and dedication. They are sometimes the forgotten part of the criminal justice system, but they should not be, as they do play an integral part of our justice system, and we do appreciate them and their work. So thank you for that. I'm here today to just kind of give the board an update for the 2024 squad cars. We're still having trouble finding Chevy Tahoes, so we ended up kind of settling for 3 Dodge Durangos, and as you can see from the information that I did provide, it will be a slightly less monthly payment for the Dodge Durangos over the Tahoes. Main reason for that is because when I requested originally in 2023 for these cars, it was going to be a 3-year lease. For these Durangos, I'm requesting a 4-year lease. Reason being is we're not really going to get them out on the street anytime soon, so it's probably going to be more financially responsible to do a 4-year lease on them over a 3-year lease. And hopefully that'll assist us with some of our maintenance issues that we have with our current cars that are on the street.
Are you looking at trying to get back with the Chevys in the future, or is this just something we're going to?
I am going to try and get back to Chevys in the future, but we will have these Durangos for the 3 years coming up here.
Is it increasing the fit-up cost any?
Not with these, because they were going to be switching over from a Ford Explorer to a Tahoe, so what we had to do was switch over from the Explorer to a Durango.
Okay.
And I did make an attempt to try and get anything. I mean, this is what they found. This is what Enterprise was able to find. They were looking for Tahoes, they were looking for pickups, they were looking for kind of anything out there, and this is what they had available for us. So was able to kind of snap these up on short notice. So,
are you comfortable with staying with Enterprise? Is this something they're going to weather through, or?
I wish I had an answer for you. I know my work with Enterprise has definitely gone up. I went from not having to deal with squad cars that often to it's almost a daily occurrence. You can ask the chief deputy that sometimes I'm pulling my hair out having to deal with these issues right now, but we'll work through them, I hope, and hopefully in the next few years it'll get a little bit smoother, but that's just something I don't quite know yet.
Mr. Chair, I'd move to approve the purchase.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, on to the next.
This one I'm going to have the chief deputy kind of take it over, as he's been dealing with the National Guard major.
for this request, so I'll have him kind of explain what we're looking for and what this analyst would be doing for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Recently, the Sheriff's Office was approached by the Minnesota National Guard Counter-Drug Program with a unique opportunity to place an analyst inside our office. It has taken quite a bit of time to get to fruition. This was something that started a couple of years ago where the topic was breached with them and discussion started, and kind of unbeknownst to us, it was reapproached to us about 8 months ago, and recently we learned that there's funding available in Minnesota for the counter-drug program. The analyst, if assigned to our office, would be somebody that would work with our investigators, most specifically with our narcotics investigators working on large-scale drug trafficking organizations, working directly with our investigators, taking over a lot of the analysis that they work on, the phone analysis, the forensics of the phone analysis, and then also analyzing reports and financial data and helping map that out for our investigators and our detectives working narcotics investigations. This is a position that would basically be a cost neutral for us. The National Guard would pay for benefits and salary. They would remain employed by the National Guard. Our portion of it would be that we would be supplying office space for them, a computer for them, and cell phone, along with other office assistants for them. We have a MOU that we would like to put in place with them. It has been reviewed by the county attorney's office. We would look for your support in signing off on that MOU. And the MOU would stay in place until terminated by either our office or by the Minnesota National Guard. This is a program that they do not just in Minnesota, but nationally as well. I've worked firsthand with several of the analysts over in North Dakota. They provide superior level of work for us and assistance to us.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you for the update on that. I have a question in regards to, I see that the Attorney's Office has reviewed the MOU and supported or approved it. In regards to the computer component, are they under the IT umbrella then of the county, or would they be under the IT umbrella of their department?
If they're within our system on our network, then it would be with the county.
Okay, all right. Just wanting to make sure, understanding our cybersecurity risks.
And it does say in the MOU, I can't point to the specific
That's
page,
fine.
but they do have to follow through with our requirements with the state as well.
Great. I think this is an awesome opportunity to partner with the National Guard, and just elevates how often your department sheriff is willing to work with other entities to make sure that we're addressing the needs that we see in our community.
Sheriff, is this, or Chief Deputy, is this going to be strictly narcotic trafficking cases?
Yes, for the most part. That is their focus of the counter-drug program, and specifically it outlines the drug trafficking would be their emphasis for it. The analyst, one other part of it is they can't do anything with enforcement, so we can't take them out on our search warrants or any type of enforcement action. They'll be basically tied to a desk, helping us, assisting us from that aspect.
Any collaboration with any of the task force around here? Is this just going to be something in-house?
This would be specifically assigned to the sheriff's office.
Okay.
They would be assigned to the sheriff's office, but they would work with other analysts in the area as well.
Okay. It looks like a good opportunity.
Since they're with the National Guard, don't they already have their own computer and their phones, or do you have to supply another one, or? I mean, is he gonna have two sets of phones then, or?
He would have.
I'm just wondering the importance of another phone.
He would have a computer and a phone supplied by us. What this is gonna be, this is somebody that would be on a deployment, so to speak. So it's somebody that right now has their own job, things of that nature, and they're gonna essentially deploy them to the Clay County Sheriff's Office to assist in a crime analyst position. Therefore, we would be supplying them with a phone and a computer to have access to our network, our information, and things of that nature. So we would have to supply them with that. They would not have two phones besides their personal phone and then a county phone.
Okay.
Any other questions? We have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve this contract. Or memorandum of understanding, excuse me.
Second.
Have motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Sheriff?
Thank you.
You gonna leave Gabe up here by himself?
Morning, Mr. Chair.
Riding solo.
It is still morning, barely.
It better be morning when you finish.
Wow.
I am here closing out or looking to close out my 2023 EMPG grant. And as part of that grant, I need, hopefully Sarah got you, I threw our emergency operations plan on thumb drives and gave to all of you. Yeah. And that's just the annexes to the plan, so there are attachments to that, but those have sensitive information in them, so I didn't include those. But I'm looking for county board approval and then signature from Frank, who would have been our 2023 board chair. But if you have any questions about the plan or the process, it is a part of the grant requirement.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the 2023 EOP.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Gotcha.
Sarah, do you have the form? All right, thank you.
Thanks, Gabe.
Good morning.
Good morning, Justin Sorum, County Engineer. Request for approval of the yearly supply bids.
Yes, so the first item I have is for the approval of the yearly supply bids. So this is furnishing metal culverts, buying bituminous mixture, and the rental of construction equipment. Basically what this is just a list that we can utilize throughout the year to either buy pipe, buy mix if we have to do any patching, or if we need to rent equipment from contractors. So we do accept all bids. If you have any questions.
Any questions for Justin?
In regards to, if I might, Mr. Chair, supply, are you hearing of any substantial delays? I know we've had different delays on different components over the years, but.
Not right now, so it's been really good on metal pipe. We haven't had any issues getting it. Okay. Box culverts a few years ago, there was an extreme lull, which I think it's starting to get back to normal.
All right, good.
Mr. Chair, I would move all bids for corrugated metal culverts, all bids for bituminous mixture, and all bids for rental of construction equipment.
I'll second the motion.
We have motion to second. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
All right, second item I have is requesting approval of gravel bids as shown in the packet that I handed out. So we received 3 bids, one from Turner Sand and Gravel, one from Strata, and one from Central Specialties. So I'd be seeking 3 separate motions here because there's 3 different things. So I'm recommending awarding townships 1 through 29 to Turner Sand and Gravel, 30A, which would be Tansem Township, to Strata, and then rejecting bids for Central Specialties for 15A and 19A, contingent upon rejection from Hawley and Highland Grove. So a few different townships went in with us like they do every year. So we didn't receive many bids for the township graveling, which is why some are rejected and 30A goes to Strata.
Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do you want to talk about the alternative then for the 15A and 19A?
Yep, so I did talk to Highland Grove and Hawley Township. So Turner Sand and Gravel was willing to give them a number, just not on the county bid. Gotcha. As they'd have to have a bond, and they were going to reach out to Turner Sand and Gravel.
Mr. Chair, then I might make a motion to approve Turner Sand and Gravel, the contract for townships 1 through 29, Strata Corporation for Township 30A. I'll have the approvals in one, probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, one at a time. Okay, we have a motion for the townships 1 through 29 to Turner Sand and Gravel. And then the strata would be in separate motion.
My motion included strata.
Oh, okay.
30A in this one.
Okay, to include the 30A to strata. And we have a second. Any further discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
And
Passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I might make a motion to reject the gravel bid for central specialties for Township 15A and 19A, given the rationalization that our county engineer provided.
A second.
I have motion to second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right.
And the final item I have is the approval of the dust control quote. So we did receive 4 bids this year, which is last year, I think we only got 2. So it's good to see a little bit more interest in it. We received 4 bids, 2 for calcium chloride and 2 for magnesium chloride. The low bid was Hennon Lawn Care out of Wendell, Minnesota at $1.30 per gallon, which was down from the price last year of about 36 cents. So I did reach out to a few different counties who have used Hennon Lawn Care. Traverse has used them, Grant has used them, and they've been happy with them. So I am recommending approval of the quote from Hennon Lawn Care out of Wendell, Minnesota for the dust control contract.
So move.
Second.
Have motion to second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Appreciate your patience. Okay, Steve, I request permission to enter in negotiations for property purchase.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of weeks ago, during my update, I provided the board an update that had been contacted by one of the owners of our property on, we have 2 properties on the west side of our campus here that were not purchased as part of the Correctional Law Enforcement Center projects. And at the time, and then I guess the years following, we've reached out to those owners that in the event that they ever would wish to sell, that they contact the county prior to doing so. I did have one of the owners reach out a couple weeks ago. We've had a brief discussion at the board level. We did bring this to the building committee for discussion and are here this morning to seek your approval in not only looking to potentially purchase the property that they've reached out to, but also have contact with the neighbor next door, the other property, to see if they have any interest in selling also. With that, I'd yield for any questions.
Questions?
Within your package, you do have a map of the campus. If you look up into the top left, there you see there's 3 remaining properties. The county owns the property to the north. The property that we were contacting in question is a middle property, and then the third property is right below there. Again, it's just over 22,000 square feet for these properties. If you take a look at in your packet, I do have property details as far as the values of the property. Again, in previous when we previously purchased, we contacted and they had the opportunity to select either the market value or the tax value from that standpoint. And so, again, I'd yield for any questions.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair, this was discussed in our, as Steve mentioned, in our building committee, and it came with the recommendation to proceed with negotiations on 9/18, and then also to offer that same for the other property at 914. I think I put them in the correct order. 914 9th Street North. With that, I would move the approval to move forward with the negotiations.
Second.
Have motion to second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you. committee reports, and Paul, you'll start us off.
You want the short story?
Yes.
All in favor of short?
I'll give you the short answer.
All right. Last Tuesday, I had the executive board, executive committee for adult mental health. Went through our survey that a report that they'll be presenting here on the 21st. Agency reports were done by all the people in attendance, which were about 8 reports. Excuse me. There we go. Then on Thursday the 2nd, I had the intergovernmental committee meeting that morning. The main thing I'd make of note was Annabelle, our opioid program manager, gave a good report, similar to the one we heard with the cities and the counties, or cities, I think it was. Anyway, good job. This one reached a little different audience, and she always does such a nice job moving forward. I don't have all my notes. Maybe there's something else. Commissioner Campbell was there, and also Steve, so anything you can add. And then on Monday, or last night, I was at the Morton City Planning meeting. We had 3 public hearings. The one was Snaky Creek, which I talked about a few weeks ago when it was approved by the Buffalo Red Watershed. And anyway, the commission approved that improvement on Snaky Creek. Also, the approval of the preliminary and final plat of Moorhead Downtown Edition. So all of it's now platted. Then also there were another hearing on text amendments in regard to mainly up in Oakport and Americana, giving more options for the people that live on those properties and making sure they kind of, in their uses, they conform to the ideals of the city of Moorhead. And then last was a report from Derek. We approved it. He also, it wasn't talking about the extensions, but it was talking about the approval of having the Moorhead redevelopment tax increment financing approved. So that was it, and that was approved, and that's what I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Mojo.
All right, we're not going in order, sorry. Okay, let's see, so we're going back a couple weeks. April 23rd, I attended the Fargo-Moorhead Diversion Land Management Committee. We basically, the biggest item on the agenda there was the excess lands policy. Not policy, but the approval to disperse some excess lands. I saw on the agenda today, we've worked through some of that, so they're in the process of doing that. On April 24th, we all had, not we all, but Commissioner Ebinger, Administrator Larson, and James O'Donnell from the juvenile detention facility had the opportunity to travel to St. Paul to have our hearing in front of the Capital Investment Committee for our House File 5414 in regards to the $1,093,000 ask for the renovation of our detox space that will be vacated when they move into the new facility. Really felt we had some great dialogue and questions from those on the committee. We had a good meeting with Representative Keeler before, and then after we were able to meet with Representative Joy, Senator Rasmussen, Senator Johnson, Representative Burkle, and I think Senator Carlson. And then we were able to attend the floor session in which our House file that we testified got their bill numbers. So it was really a great opportunity to go down there and advocate. And in the 2 weeks since, we've done a lot of outreach significantly to the Capital Investment Committee to continue the dialogue and raise our issue. As you saw, maybe in the forum, there was a article about our facility as well. So good work there. Thursday, the 25th, I had an MCC JPA meeting. And I'm sorry, I wasn't ready. That it's pulling up just a second. It's working slow, kind of like I do. Oh, my IT would love it that it's asking for my authenticator, but maybe Commissioner Campbell can report on that one because I was there. I do know there were important components discussed. It won't open for whatever reason. And then on the May 1st, I had the Federal Head Start Review monitoring visit, so we were able to, with CAP-LP and staff, discuss our Head Start program here. It's fantastic. It's exciting to see our our young at heart board chair, but previous board chair, Sarah King's in the audience today. We just had great feedback from the federal reviewers on the work that CAP-LP does. And so we're really excited to have their presence in the community. And on Thursday the 2nd, we had an MCC JPA special executive session in regards to a land acquisition negotiation. Later on that day, I had a MetroCog UPWP meeting with our Planning and Zoning Director, Matt Jacobson, and County Engineer Justin Sorum in regards to the planning dollars that are available. There seems to be more funds than we have projects for, so we were able to elevate some areas that we think Clay County could utilize some additional planning perspective to continue the conversation with MetroCog. Yesterday, we had a long Minnesota Rural County Caucus meeting, good information in regards to the speed at which session is going. As you know, because we get updates from AMC, there's a lot happening. One thing that's of vital importance for us specifically is they issued a call to action for the tax committee members, both on the Senate and House, to continue to push the importance for SCORE funding. There, in the last couple weeks, have been some chatter at the Capitol about maybe reducing the amount to counties. And so asked county boards to reach out to tax committee members to encourage that. I did reach out to Representative Joy yesterday. I was able to talk that through with him, but I think it would be helpful for all of us, specifically since he's on the tax committee, to encourage him. Representative Gomez is the chair of that committee, so encourage him to work with her to continue that being in there. So that was that component. And yesterday I had a MetroCog Executive Committee meeting, really good information in regards to plans and upcoming, not only the 2024 work plan, but now we're looking at adding for the 2025. And then we started the Executive Director Review. Last week, last Monday, I believe, I had a meeting with Administrator Larson, Commissioner Campbell, with the Chamber, Shannon Full and Catherine Grinberg, in regards to just a good pulse, take the pulse of the county. What are issues that we're seeing coming up? How can we continue to partner, not only to get through session, but after session? So that was a really good roundtable on that. And then yesterday, we did host here the meeting with the Clay County leaders from the Chamber, the roundtable. So we did have good updates, community updates, discussion in regards to 2024 legislative session priorities and strategies, continued bonding request strategy. They shared that they want to be helpful as we seek a bonding tour. And then Mayor Carlson did let us know of the groundbreaking for the inclusive playground, which will be May 30th. I think that concludes my report.
Thank you. Are you
more,
sure?
More a question than a statement.
Okay, the 2 weeks.
Busy 2 weeks, but good.
Yes, it is. Kevin?
Thank you. On April 23rd, we did have the Diversion Authority Land Management Committee meeting. The main focus of the business there was dealing with excess lands, approving that process to move forward on, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different parcels, and 2 of those maintaining flowage easements on those parcels. And that was really all that was discussed during that meeting. On April 24th, we had the Prairie Lake Solid Waste meeting in Perham. Typically going through our monthly revenues over expenditures, all there is in line with the projections. Our deliveries, as of April 23rd, Clay County was down 121. I think that was due in part to some closures that were happening, planned closures, so that negative number will be caught up. And then they're looking at the stack testing that would be done on May 17th. That's always an important component from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency standpoint, and making sure that we're within those guidelines. We talked about some Wadena deliveries and a hauler report by all counties and where their solid waste goes. We continue to have discussions about ash management, and we are in the process. We have applied for an $850,000 grant that would help move forward with the plans that I've talked about here before, in terms of being able to use that ash in some of our road projects. So that's, hopefully we'll be successful in that regard. We continue to talk about the PFAS area emissions testing that we're partnering with other facilities similar to ours. And then we also, we did not talk anymore about the website discussion. That was going to happen, that's going to happen at our May meeting. On Thursday, the 25th, that afternoon, we were here for the MCC-JPA board meeting. As always, we get a property acquisition status report. We did receive Minnesota litigation action updates. And then we did get some information regarding a solar garden release letter, an agreed upon letter on some properties. I believe it's right on the Wilkin County line, right? Yep. Commissioner Mojo? And that was to establish that moving forward, there was an agreement that these solar gardens would still be allowed to be put in those places, even though I think they're in zone 4, which would allow them to continue with their plan to move forward. And then we did have land agent reports. We had our 2024 farmland leases that we did agree to. And then we got an update on our weed control agreement that no action was on. And then we did approve one additional request on some reimbursements on for some moving costs and regarding a previously approved purchase. Then on the 25th, the Diversion Board of Authority meeting. That one, I think what was probably of the most interest was some discussion regarding the resignation of our director, and I think there were some issues that were brought out that we kind of wanted to clear up on what had gone on. There was some interpretation that maybe that individual had been terminated, and that certainly wasn't the case. So I think we went through that. We had a really good presentation from legal on where we stand with our developers regarding what was in the original contract and what we expect out of that contract. And then we did approve some MOU agreements through a consent agenda. And Obviously, we have updates from the Corps and from our own internal engineers and communications teams. And as always, they can find more information on the diversion website. On April 30th, we did have our building committee meeting. We talked about the pre-design for the PRTF. We talked about the two properties that we just took action on. And then we did ask for moving forward what our original plans were for the jail expansion. So we still have those two areas within that grassy area that's been reserved for future pods if needed. And then we got in the Justice Center, we got an update on the state probation. There was some talk about them moving into this building, and now it appears that that probably isn't going to be sufficient size for them. So I think they're probably looking at other options there. We did hear from the courts that they would like to, in courtroom 2, they'd like to expand that to be like courtroom 4, where it would have the jury box. So, that's, I think we agreed that that's probably a good thing to do. We heard from Brian regarding some future long-term planning for his department in the lower level. And then we went through Family Service Center master planning. We got updates from the Public Defender's Office, what we would do with some potential vacant space and the fit up. And the second floor vacant detox space, more discussion on that. And then for 2026, we're looking at a joint highway roof project that's out in our highway department, and how that process will work and the costs involved with that. More to come on that. On May 2nd, Thursday morning, we had the Clay County Intergovernmental Committee. Commissioner Krabanoff reported on that. We did have that excellent report from Annabelle on the opioid response presentation. And then we did the Dilworth Fire Hall groundbreaking ceremony. We've going to do that joint press conference. And then we did receive some intergovernmental communications and facilities updates by each entity. That afternoon, we had a special session of the Clay County Joint Powers Board, and the sole purpose of that was we had a closed session regarding consultation for purchase of property interests, and that was that. And then I also attended the Minnesota Department of Transportation Stay in the Know meeting that they had at the AmComp Center regarding the Highway 10 75 11th Street underpass project. I thought that was very informative, and that was put on by MnDOT, and they're going to have those periodically, and I think they're very good. It allowed, I was glad to see Sherry from the MBA there, really able to express ingress and egress issues with our businesses to make sure that they're adequately signed and all of those types of things. So it was a really good meeting. I'm glad I attended that, and they're called monthly coffee and construction open houses, and they're gonna happen obviously on a monthly basis. And so I think it would be if any of our residents watching that have interest in that project and might have concerns about when things are going to be closed and time frames and all that stuff, that's a good meeting to go to get your individual questions asked. So that concludes my report.
Hey, thank you. On the 24th, I went to the Capitol with Commissioner Mojo, County Administrator Larson, and James O'Donnell from West Central. Very impressive support we've gotten there from both Representative Keeler and Senator Kupek, who sponsored the companion bill to our issue in getting the transitional housing for female juveniles up and running. Great job, Commissioner Mojo, in presenting it. James O'Donnell was there as well and did a good job. I was very proud of him. At one point, he got asked the hard question about, is this going to be available for women, or for young women that are pregnant? And his response was, we've been through this before, and that doesn't scare us. We can deal with those issues. And I just showed the good attitude they've got at West Central to address the needs of these kids as they're reintegrating back into the community. So it was a productive meeting up there. On the 25th, Thursday, I attended the Diversion Authority Board meeting that was already been well described by Commissioner Campbell. On May 2nd, I remotely attended the WebEx meeting of the Emergency Communication Networks Legislative Committee. Nothing really there that's developed. Everybody's holding their breath to see what gets in the omnibus bill, and hopefully that's going to work out on some of the issues we're looking at. And that completes my meeting, or my report. Oh, Frank, I must apologize. No, you can be the chair.
Okay,
do it last.
On April 24th, that Wednesday, I went to the open house for the family dentistry. They had a very good turnout there to see that place. I guess we all pretty much toured that place before, but they had a very, very well attended open house over there. On Monday the 29th, One Watershed, One Planet, Wild Rice. There we went through election of officers, and also the main thing there was the $30,000 that they received for incentives for CRP to extend they can extend their contracts. They got they can get $100 an acre more if they extend. It's also done on a first come, first served basis. So a little bit of discussion on the first come, first served basis, but I guess they feel it's going to work out for them. Monday, we had the MRC meeting. Oh, excuse me, building last Thursday, April 30th, building committee meeting, which Commissioner, what's your name again? Campbell, hi there. Another one of those senior moments. There
Almost
again.
like we don't have name tags in front of us.
You know,
Yeah,
I think
you were
we gotta
there.
turn these things the other way.
Commissioner Kevin. Anyway, it's already been discussed. No use going over that. Then on Thursday, we had the One Watershed, One Policy Committee meeting for the Buffalo. There again, all we did, the only thing on the agenda was the $30,000, which they got the same amount that the Wild Rice did too, and we approved that contract also. Monday, MRC, Minnesota Rural Caucus meeting. We had reports from Senator John Jasinski and Bill Weber. They both gave reports. They talked about the senator that had some problems with some burglary, and he feels that they're probably not going to do anything until the voting or the session is over to keep her vote in there. So, but I just see, I got an email saying that there's an ethics committee that they're moving forward on that. They're also looking at capturing more money from electrical vehicles for roads and bridges, coming up with a system, how they can do that. Sam Walstead, who's on the Capitol, our lobby committee, talked about the EMC, getting EMC assistance for rural areas, broadband assistance, long discussion on that White Earth discussion, which we've read about in Detroit Lakes area there. Discussed about that, they shouldn't be doing it. Also, they encouraged us to contact our legislature on all our agenda items that we need help on. Last night, I attended the Holly City Council meeting. I guess they just had regular city council information, other than they established a resolution in opposition to the redesigning the state flag and the emblem and seal. And I don't know, I've seen that in paper already, that several counties have already done that. I don't know if we want to set a position or not on that, or just leave it go. And but like I say, they established their resolution to be against it. And the next thing that I've been attending some of the city council meetings, the one was very concerned about the dumping of dirt from the 11th Street over at the, right by Highway 336. They're very concerned because several years ago we disapproved the permit for Red River Electric that they couldn't build in that area, and now they're dumping all kinds of dirt in there. Linden Township is very concerned about all the dirt being dumped there. So just bringing that forward for discussion. And those were my meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, and my apologies.
No problem.
Kevin skipped me once when he was chairman, and my feelings are still hurt.
Mr. Chair.
I'm over it.
I told you I would forget one. We did have a meeting, both Administrator Larson and I had a discussion in regards to the senior transportation plan, or senior transportation component for Lakes and Prairies Community Action. As you recall, that has been a funding source that came out of ARPA. There were some funds there and have got it funded for a couple of years. They were disrupted in a grant cycle for that, but I really do feel we've got a proposal that could be of mutual benefit. They were open to the potential to provide a shuttle service for seniors or folks needing transportation from the DMV site to the Walmart bus stop. So not a end-all plan, but certainly as we continue to advocate for Matt Bus to include a stop there, thought it was an opportunity to, one, increase ridership and visibility, but two, really help us with that component. We talked about the potential for adding a morning once a week on a certain day and an afternoon once a week on a certain day, knowing that we can, as long as it's visible and as long as the public knows the plan, that could be something of benefit. So,
very good. Steve, are you ready?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to follow up comments that Commissioner Gross made. Just by state statute, unless the legislature does something different by May 11th, Flag Day, the new flag has to be at least in the courtrooms and courthouses. And so that's unless there's some change in the future, that's what needs to take place. So. The 23rd, going back a couple weeks, 23rd, we did a number of preparations for testifying for the transition house. I want to thank James O'Donnell, Commissioner Mojo, for help pulling that stuff together on extremely short notice. On the 24th, we were in St. Paul, as was mentioned. On the 25th, we had the MCC JPA meeting, which has also been addressed. The 26th, we had a legislative update from MACA for Matt Hilgart. On the 26th, I also spoke with Connie Ross from North Homes in regards to their PRTF program that they established and then ultimately chose not to open, to get a little bit more feedback on that. On the 29th, met with, as Commissioner Mojo mentioned, with the CAP-LP. Commissioner Mojo and Commissioner Campbell also met with them with the FM Chamber that afternoon. The following day, met with Matt Johnson, Matt Jacobson, Lori Johnson, and Jill in regards to a potential expansion of a business in Hawley, and there'll be more to come on that. The building committee also on the 30th, that's been addressed. On the first, participated in the intergovernmental retreat that has been addressed. Again, Annabelle Default has just done a really amazing job. We're fortunate to have someone that's done great work and hit the ground running, and so it was great to hear about many of the things that that she's done and how quickly she's got involved in our community in the short time that she's been with us. On the second, had a meeting with Scott Fettig in regards to our pre-designed contract. And again, just for maybe more for my clarity, as I mentioned during the contract discussion today, he's looking to meet already next Monday. We've had a number of committees and commissioners that have touched this project. And so normally we would have this remain with building committee until the decision was to move it, and it would be finance. Having said that, we've had Commissioner Campbell, Commissioner Krabanoff, Commissioner Mojo as part of the legislative piece. And so just looking for just clarifying directives on who you envision as part of that meeting next week.
At this point, it would still be building committee, wouldn't it? Under the way we know.
Normally how we've done it, yes.
And then once it moves to beyond that, then it would go to the finance committee.
Okay.
So I guess that's.
Yeah, I agree.
Sounds reasonable to me.
So you're looking at a meeting on Monday morning?
Monday afternoon. It would be at, it would probably take place right after the other two owners' meetings that we have that day. But what we have it scheduled for right now is 2:30 to 4:30. Yep. That would be here.
Is the DMV that day at 1?
The DMV and withdrawal management are at 1, yep.
So in other words, we'll have a full day that day, Frank. Highway tracking.
Highway tracking in the morning, yes. Let's see, participated in the MCC JPA special meeting. Also, as was mentioned this last week, sent a number of letters of support on the board's behalf. Thank you guys for your quick response. We sent letters of support in regards to the West Central Water District funding. We sent letters for the GO bonding bills and capital improvement, and we also sent them for capital investments and thanking them for allowing us to present. So let's see. Commissioner Campbell mentioned May 22nd is going to be the EMS and fire professionals press conference. They're also going to coordinate their groundbreaking for the Dilworth Fire Station during that day, so we'll get that added to your list of approved meetings. Let's see. Sorry. We have the meeting yet. We have the Homeland Security. So we asked both of them to shift a little bit so we can scoot out the Dilworth. Yeah. And on Friday, I met with Sheriff Empting on our issue from here today with vehicles. I appreciate his ongoing efforts to keep me updated on those and other issues. Yesterday, I participated in the market study discussion with Anna and Lori and Darren, and then also some budget discussions with Lori. Again, just some additional upcoming meetings that you've been invited to. The Moorhead's going to be holding 2 public hearings, one on May 13th at 5:30 at the MCOM Center for the creation of the TIF district, and then also on May 14th at the MCOM at 4 p.m. for the consideration of the adoption for the zoning, the airport zoning ordinance, which we have representatives of Matt Jacobson and also you, private citizen head Steve Moore, also participate on that. And then lastly, you've been invited by the judges to participate in a community conversation listening session with our district court judges to ensure access to justice and fairness and court participations. And that concludes my report.
Commissioner Campbell.
I did not report, but I did want to just mention that I also attended that chamber meeting on April 29th with Commissioner Mojo and Mr. Larson and other members of the chamber. And I wanted to just bring up Commissioner Gross in his report. He mentioned the word lobbyist in his report. And I know that the consensus of our board was to maybe be looking at that in regards to the PRTF, and I know Commissioner Kravinoff has been working on that, but I really think what we did earlier in terms of the deal with Klein McCarthy will actually help in that regard, bringing some clarity to what it is that we'd be asking for. So that whole coordination hopefully can come into play. And then lastly, I just want to thank Sarah in advance for having to listen to about 4.5 hours of tapes to prepare the minutes for this meeting. So
be sure when we do the salary survey, we. All right. Darren, anything? Sarah? Appreciate everybody's efforts. It's been a long meeting, but productive as always. And we will call it closed.